After the previous episode's wine-drunk nudity mishap with Noah, the Bible now takes some time to outline his family tree, his sons and his sons' sons' sons. Noah's son Ham had a son named Cush, who in turn had a son named Nimrod. Yep, those are real names. Ham had that experience with Noah and was like, you know what, forget alcohol, I'm naming my son after weed. And then Cush was like, I'm gonna name my son Nimrod and mold him into the first dumbass. So for the next half a page, we get all the other sons and their sons who have names that aren't nearly as amusing, and no daughters to speak of course. You'd think Earth was a real sausage fest the way nobody ever talks about women in this book so far. You don't get a name, you don't do any deeds, all you do is create sons, and your existence is never more than implied. These families become clans, essentially, under the umbrella of Canaan and spread out across the region, which is interesting that he should be the spearhead of those families when he was literally cursed as a servant of servants by Noah because Canaan's dad saw Noah's spread-eagled junk. The Bible says, and the whole earth was of one language and one speech. Nobody had to press 1 for English, mostly because they were speaking Aramaic or ancient Akkadian or Hebrew or whatever else historians keep arguing about according to my brief Google search. Everyone speaking the same language sounds boring. I'm supposed to call customer support and actually understand the person helping me. God apparently also agrees that this is weird because after the people come together to invent bricklaying and create a city in a super tall tower, God comes down and looks at stuff and says, "Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do." It sounds like something your parents would encourage in you, like you can do anything you put your mind to, way to accomplish your goals, but in God's eyes, it's a problem. So he snapped his fingers, and all of a sudden, everyone was speaking 35 different languages, and then he scattered them all to the far corners of the earth to be as different as humanly possible. It's very difficult to imagine he did this out of anything but fear or contempt or both. He appears to take umbrage with the idea that humans would cooperate to build a tower with the intent of reaching the heavens, because they do say that's what they're trying to do. And not only that, they literally say before they start work on the city and tower, let's make us a name, lest we be scattered across the face of the earth. Coincidentally, the exact thing God ends up doing. It's like he sees one people united in one language under one banner and is either threatened by their unity or offended by their ambition. Like, you want to reach the heavens, eh? Well, only I decide who gets up there and you're not showing up unannounced. The Bible hasn't even said anything about heaven yet, insofar as humanity being aware of its existence, so it's kind of weird. Like, in the beginning, God made the heaven and the earth, obviously. But up to this point, it says nothing of God ever telling anyone, hey, be good on earth, because when you die, you can get into this really exclusive club and your wrist stamp never fades away. I've never been in an exclusive club, so I don't know if they do wrist stamps. You think Cain went up to the pearly gates and showed him the mark of Cain, like, hey, does this count? Also, if the people are trying to build a tower to heaven, and God is lamenting that nothing is beyond their imagination, does that mean they would have eventually succeeded? If they go up far enough into space and can survive the lack of oxygen and freezing temperatures, will they eventually break through the top into paradise? That's the problem with these rockets and astronauts. They fly upward for a bit, and then they reach a certain point and start curving horizontal towards the moon or their satellites or whatever. You gotta keep a straight vertical to pierce the veil and see beyond the void. But if God thought they had a real chance of making it, they must have invented the spacesuit a long time ago. Or was space okay back then? Like in biblical times, if you had the means, could you float around up there with a t-shirt on and just be chilling? It also depends where on Earth the tower was, right? Because the Earth is a globe, a sphere. For people on opposite sides of it, up is a different angle. If people in China and people in America both build a tower upwards, they're not going the same direction. They're going outward away from each other. And if you're at the South Pole, that Tower of Babel is going straight up to hell. It makes me wonder where heaven actually is. Anyway, God still acts like he hates humanity even after the flood. He's just toning down the consequences from mass extinction to mass migration. He literally created foreigners and then had them deported. That is nuts. He also named the tower Babel as a symbol of his confounding the languages, which is funny that in modern English we now refer to gibberish we don't understand as Babel, and what a middle finger to the people who built it because they wanted to name it themselves, and God just said, nah, you're too tongue-tied now. I'll name it after my hilarious and awesome decision to break down your entire civilization. Now we get to hear about the lineage of Shem, who, if we recall, we don't, is one of the sons of Noah, who did not see his father's meat. What follows are a dozen more people in a descending family tree who lived from 500 to 200 years as God makes good on his promise through the ages of lowering their lifespans because he just can't even anymore. It's a little confusing because the Bible will lay out like a millennia of family history in 2 paragraphs, and then you're just expected to infer the time period of whatever story is being told later on by how old the people in it lived to be as previously listed. I'm just doing my best out here. At the very bottom of this exposition, the final descendant up to this point is a man named Abram, who you might better recognize as Abraham, of Abraham and Isaac fame. His whole history and those famous stories are up next, which I already covered in detail a couple years ago in episode 224 of my Stream of Consciousness series, but I'm going to do it again here for posterity. If you haven't seen that, feel free to watch that as well, or instead, maybe the jokes in that one end up being better, who knows, I might end up repeating some of them, but let's get into it. So Abram is the son of Terah, and he has 2 brothers, Nahor and a dead one named Haran. It says Haran died before his dad did, which is never what you want to have happen as a father, believe me, I assume. Abram and Nahor both took wives. Abram's was named Sarai, amazing she got a name at all, and then I have read this next part 10 times and I do not understand it. And the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. Putting aside the fact that Nahor presumably married his brother's daughter, the way they say this makes no sense to me. Milcah, daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah? That's just you saying the same thing twice but in reverse. Nice to meet you guys, I'm the son of my dad who's the father of me. And then they add in father of Iscah. Who the hell's Iscah? Haran is introduced a few sentences earlier, and all they say is he had a son named Lot. There ain't no Iscah. It's like whoever wrote this forgot. Oh, he also had Iscah, by the way. Male or female is anyone's guess, because they aren't mentioned ever again in the story. How crazy do you have to be to look at your brother's daughter and be like, hey man, can I have that? It says Abram's wife Sarai was barren, so I guess Nahor wasn't taking any chances. She looks fertile, dude. Come on, bro. Do me a solid here. Terah takes Abram, Sarai, and Lot, Haran's son, on a trip to Haran, which is also a place. They just named the places people's names. I know we also do that, but at least we do last names, usually. I'm not going to found a town and be like, I, Kevin, hereby dub this town Kevin. It then says Terah died in Haran, which is just such unfortunate phrasing that could have easily been avoided. He died in Haran, but Haran's dead. That means... So later on, God waltzes up to Abram and says, I just think that's a funny verb to use for God. Do you think God has any swagger, like charisma, some machismo? Does he wear cool clothes and lean up against buildings with 1 foot when he's talking to people? But he says, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will shew thee. Shew spelled S-H-E-W, like I assume it means show, but whatever. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. God's like an agent trying to scout a 14-year-old girl for a music career. I'll make you a star, Abram. The whole world will know your name. You'll be at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 if Taylor Swift ever stops re-releasing her bullshit. That's not even it. He keeps going. I'll bless those who bless thee, and curse those who curse thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Really gassing him up, and if you know the tribulations God puts him through later, it feels very mean-spirited in hindsight. So Abram takes his wife Sarai and his nephew Lot and all the substances they had gathered and the souls they had gotten. Bible's words, souls meaning people, people meaning slaves. It's interesting the differences between the King James version of the Bible I'm reading now and the other one I borrowed a couple years ago last time I did this story, because instead of substances and souls, that one read all the possessions they had accumulated and all the people they had acquired. I feel like it doesn't mention Nahor marrying his brother's daughter either, because I'd like to think I wouldn't have missed that, but maybe I did, because it sure was news to me this time. A more digestible Bible is obviously a plus, but don't you dare water stuff down. Slavery is obviously commonplace in biblical times. God created everyone equal, and property is a noble profession. Abram should watch out having so many souls, though. If he dies, he'll have to get back to where he was to reclaim them. Hope he levels up before he fights the next boss. I'm still a video game channel at the end of the day. So Abram and company travel south for a while, but God is still God, so he eventually appears and goes, "Build me an altar." God doesn't care if you're busy, even on an errand he sent you on. He gets in his feels if you don't spend enough time with him. Abram continues south, but there's a famine on his route, so he stops off in Egypt to wait for everyone to finish starving to death. As he approaches the center of Egypt, he takes his wife aside and goes, "Hey, I know you're a pretty woman to look at, so when Egyptians see you, they will go, 'This is his wife,' and they will kill me, but save you. So please say instead that you're my sister, so I will be treated well for your sake and live." They got some homicidal gooners in Egypt. Is that your sister? Right on, bro. Oh, it's your wife? Die. My wife now. Come along, new wife. So it comes to pass that this in fact does happen. Some vicariously horny princes show up, and under the assumption that Sarai is a sister, not the wife of a mister, she is brought before the pharaoh to become one of his wives, and Abram is treated to a cavalcade of goodies for pawning her off, including sheep, asses, oxen, men servants, and maid servants, aka replacements. It says Sarai also gets asses and camels, but the ass she gets is probably the pharaoh's. Then the Lord came out of nowhere and visited plagues on the Pharaoh's house because he was making moves on Sarai despite not knowing she was anyone's wife. God intervenes and punishes the wrong guy on behalf of the dude who sold his wife under false pretenses for some donkeys. And the Pharaoh's swimming in cockroaches like, why the hell did you tell me she was your sister, you absolute bastard? Take your wife and your gifts and be gone. It must suck to get super AIDS as a punishment for someone else's lie. The next time a woman is brought before him, he's going to cavity search her for a wedding ring. God doesn't even talk to Abram about what happened, doesn't admonish him for lying to the Pharaoh or putting his wife up for adoption. Maybe he figures the future tasks he'll give Abram will be punishment enough. So Abram continues south again, and he is a very rich man. Both him and Lot acquired many souls. It's like two kingdoms full of dudes traveling together, and they're starting to butt heads. Abram's people think Iron Man was right to want to kill the Winter Soldier for assassinating his parents, and Lot's people think the Winter Soldier deserves forgiveness because he was under Hydra's mind control at the time. So Abram tells Lot that he doesn't want there to be any bad blood, so they should split up and cover the land. So they separate. Lot looks upon the land that the Bible describes as well-watered before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, wow, dude, spoilers. Abram went back to Canaan, and Lot resided in Jordan near the city of Sodom. It says the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly, and then they put a pin in that to come back to later. It is now time for Abram to be reminded of his waiting gift from the Lord of all the land he can see from his current location. God's like, any day now, I promise I'll give you this land. And Abram's like, I already live here, man. God excitedly tells him to go ahead and walk around it. Do a full perimeter check, which shouldn't take more than a week of walking around in a circle, at which point he must build another altar. And now for something completely different. There is a battle between kingdoms, a game of thrones, if you will, different factions versus each other in a violent rebellion for dominance. Who will claim victory in this clash of clans? Is this a very unsubtle mobile game ad? Nope, it's still the Bible. And amid the chaos of this war, Abram's nephew Lot has been taken as a slave by one of the parties involved. When Abram hears of this, he rallies his ragtag motley crew of over 300 trained soldiers, by the way, and chases after the men who took Lot as a spoil of war, smiting them dead and successfully rescuing his nephew. The king of Sodom comes over afterwards, along with some of the other kings allied with him, and asks Abram to give him all the other people he acquired while rescuing Lot. He tells Abram to keep the goods, including goods the king has brought for him in exchange, but he wants the people. And if the king of Sodom wants people, you can only imagine what nefarious purposes he has in store for their anuses. But Abram refuses and denounces him, accruing 30 grievance points in the process, or I guess it would be losing influence points now that Civilization 7 is out. But Abram must have heard of Sodom's negative reputation from the Lord at some point, or just a random traveler with a sore ass one day, because it is very important to Abram that he not accept a single spoil from Sodom, lest he be able to say that he made Abram rich. Abram is, of course, already rich, as the Bible already pointed out before, so I don't know why this is a point of contention, but I guess if you're a millionaire and some wicked buttfucker wants to give you more money, you might turn your nose up at the association if that kind of thing is against your beliefs. We're deep in already, and there's still a lot to go for Abram, so I'll save it for the next episode. That's going to do it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can like, share, and subscribe. Watch all my other videos with your barren wife next to you, and I'll see you guys next time.